Here's a clip from the All In Boys who have uncovered a problem we're having in the AI infrastructure build-out that nobody is talking about. Check this out.
Data centers are spiking the cost of energy, or people are perceiving it to be doing so, in different geographies here in the United States. And I guess not wanting to be hated or get into wars with consumers, some big tech companies are standing down plans. Explain what's going on here, Chamath, and if this is a trend yet.
I put this out there when I wrote that because I do think that this is the beginning of a trend. Just to be very specific, Google was planning a $1 billion spend on a data center in Indianapolis County, or Indianapolis. And essentially what happened was there was enough pushback that it looked like if it went to vote in the city council, they would have voted against the approval of the data center, against the necessary zoning and other regulatory approvals. And so I think to avoid what would have been an awkward press cycle, Google just pulled it and said, don't worry, we're not going to do this here. And so that in and of itself, I think is an isolated incident, except that in this same week, it happened 2 other times. In Wisconsin, there was a proposal very similar to Google's, but this time from Microsoft, where, again, those local residents got pretty upset. And in the 11th hour, Microsoft pulled it. And then in the third example, there was an attempt by an Amazon data center to get built near Tucson that I think also was mothballed. So why is this happening? When I tweeted this out, or when I posted it rather, the comments were pretty instructive. I think that there are 3 things that I took away from it. Thing number 1 is that people are seeing their prices of electricity go up in the local areas where the data centers are being built. The second is that people are worried about the water consumption of these data centers and the cost of water and the access to clean water, and that the plans to be net neutral on water consumption may or may not be real. So there's a concern there. And then the third that many of the people commented was about the actual noise pollution that it was creating.
We'll come back to that clip in a moment, but first, a few thoughts on Google, Microsoft, and Amazon data centers getting pulled. Big tech is losing the PR battle on AI because regular people only see higher bills and disruption, not any of the promised benefits. Chamath describes 3 major data center projects getting cancelled in 1 week. This is a massive warning sign that the AI industry is completely ignoring. These companies are trying to build the infrastructure for a technology that's supposed to make everyone's life better, but the people living next to these facilities only experience downsides. Your electricity bill goes up because the data center is consuming massive amounts of power from the local grid. Your water costs increase because these facilities need constant cooling. You hear industrial noise 24/7. And what do you get in return? Nothing tangible. This isn't just a few angry residents complaining. This is city councils preparing to vote against approvals. That means that the political calculus has shifted to where blocking these projects is actually popular. The AI companies have been so focused on the technology and the future benefits that they forget to bring regular people along. They're asking communities to absorb real costs today for theoretical benefits that might arrive years from now for someone else. That's a terrible trade from the local perspective. Now, don't get me wrong, I am very bullish on AI. I am very pro technological advancements and this huge investment being made into data centers. But I think the hyperscalers do need to spare a moment for the local communities. And I say that because it's critical to America's dominance in the AI field. If this pattern continues, the US is going to struggle to build the data center capacity needed to compete with China. Not because of technology limitations, but because of local political positions. And that is how you lose a technological race. In this example, not through being outcompeted, but through self-inflicted wounds.
But I took a step back from this, and my thought is very simple, which is it actually speaks to one of 3 very important inflection points that we're dealing with on the AI side, right? So one of them we talked about last week, which is you can't have 50 state laws, right? It needs to come from the federal government so that there's one set of regulation and that there's clarity. So effectively what Sachs has been able to execute on the crypto side, I think his intention is to try to do this on the AI side, and I think the federal government needs to be given a chance to do that. Otherwise, locally in the United States, the only winners are going to be lawyers, and then we're going to create an own goal and China's going to win. Okay. Second, we just talked about it, is the government needs to be the economic backstop to the US supply chain that powers AI, right? And we talked about all these things, the metals, the minerals, the rare earths, so that the tax that companies can extract are mostly market-driven and not exploitative and doesn't create air pockets in the funding cycle. Okay, so we talked about that. But here's the thing that nobody talks about. When you look at these data centers, I think what it's saying bottoms up is that these hyperscalers need to get these communities on their side. I think that there is no understanding of what a token is. What is a token? I don't think if you ask the average person on the street, they know what it is. What they know is that tokens are not jobs. And if AI is going to be embraced by the public, I think what we need to do a better job of is to show the tangible economic benefits, especially in places like Wisconsin and Indiana that may feel like they're missing out. So we can't have this narrative that AI may take your job away while it's also doubling your electricity price, because they're not feeling and seeing the abundance that we think that it can offer.
We'll come back to that clip in a moment, but first, a few thoughts from me. The real problem isn't technical or financial, it's that AI companies are trying to extract value from communities without giving enough back. Chamath argues that tech companies need to get communities on their side by showing tangible economic benefits, especially in places like Wisconsin and Indiana that feel left out. This cuts right to the heart of why AI adoption could fail politically, even if it succeeds technically. Communities understand jobs, they understand paychecks, they understand local businesses, they don't necessarily understand distributed economic benefits or productivity gains that show up as GDP growth. When an auto factory comes to town, it brings thousands of jobs, suppliers move in, restaurants open, housing demand increases, the economic benefit is visible and direct. Everyone can see it and feel it in their daily lives. When a data center comes to town, it brings maybe 100 maintenance jobs, higher utility costs, and servers humming in a building nobody enters. Economic benefit flows to shareholders in California and users around the world. Locally, it feels like all cost and no benefit. Wisconsin and Indiana aren't technological hubs. They're places that got hit hard by manufacturing decline, and they feel like coastal elites keep winning while they keep losing. Now, those same elites want to build facilities that raise local costs to power AI systems that might eliminate more jobs. From their perspective, why would they say yes to that?
This is exactly right, Chamath. If you think about the average American citizen, they have somebody in their family who drives for Uber or DoorDash. They have truck drivers, they have Amazon factory workers, and all those jobs are going away. It's just a matter of when. And some people believe we can handle the displacement, others don't. I had Friedberg.
J-Cal, my idea is you have to use the balance sheet of these big companies, use that free cash flow, and it can act as a cushion for a lot of what needs to happen. So
Yes.
They can pay higher tariffs for electricity. They can also just frankly go and pay for some amount of the electricity bill of these local folks. They could pay for solar and storage if they wanted to. There's a plethora of ideas here where they probably are going to need to step into market to get folks on their side. And I think they have to do it.
Big tech has the money to solve this problem right now by directly subsidizing the communities housing their infrastructure, but they're choosing not to do so. It seems reasonable to propose using big tech balance sheets and free cash flow as a cushion. They can pay higher electricity tariffs, cover some of the local residents' electricity bills, or fund solar and storage in the local area. There's a plethora of ideas where companies need to step into the market to get folks on their side, and they have to do it. For me, this is a practical solution to the AI acceptance problem. And it's amazing that these companies don't seem to be doing it at mass scale already to ensure they can continue with their build out. These tech giants have more cash than most countries, so the cost of subsidizing a few local residents is a rounding error on their balance sheets. Imagine if Google's deal in Indianapolis included paying 50% of electricity bills for all residents within 5 miles of the data center, or funding solar panels for every household, or creating a local investment fund that pays dividends to community members. The cost would be trivial compared to the multi-billion-dollar facility, but the goodwill would be enormous. Right now, tech companies are focusing on the only costs that matter are the construction and operating expenses, and they're ignoring the political and social costs of imposing negative externalities on communities with no compensation. That is short-sighted because these political costs can kill projects entirely, as we're seeing. Apple has hundreds of billions of dollars sitting in cash. Microsoft prints money. These aren't struggling startups that can't afford community investment. They're the most profitable companies in human history. If AI companies want to build the infrastructure to maintain US technological leadership, they need to make hosting that infrastructure a clear net positive for local communities, not through vague promises or future economic growth, but through direct, immediate, tangible benefits that show up in people's lives right now. They have the money. The question is whether they have the will to spend it before local opposition makes building impossible. If you found this video of value, why not consider hitting subscribe? Cheers.